Well, the irony of it. Turns out I'm a victim today of global warming. Now, 500,000 Victorians are as well because we're without power, apart from my generator, thank God. We're without power because of extreme weather, or so claims the Energy Minister, who's a real global warming crusader. It's extreme weather. In fact, the temperature in Melbourne, after one of the mildest summers I've ever known, nearly hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the old century, but didn't, okay? So I've known many, many hotter days. But winds, yes, did blow over a couple of transmission lines out past Geelong, causing shortages of the kind, well, what a surprise! Shortages of electricity that we've been warned about for years because of global warming policies that have left us short of electricity. You're stunned, of course. Joining me, of course, every Tuesday is Rowan Dean, editor of The Spectator Australia, and also host of Outsiders here on Sky News every Sunday at 9 a.m. I never miss it. Rowan, you're laughing. I'm a victim of global warming, or maybe global warming policies.
More likely the latter, Andrew. Clearly, Chris Bowen, unlike Anthony Albanese, didn't go to the tennis in Melbourne this year. Anthony Albanese got booed, perhaps for whatever reasons, but Jim Courier stood there at one of the finals and said, you know what? It's always so cold here at the Australian Open these days. It used to be so much hotter. It's been, the last few years it's been so cold. Now, that was an American here with no axe to grind, just telling the truth, the empirical truth of how he experienced the weather every time he comes out here. Now, I've been saying for a long time that the Australia I remember in the 60s and 70s was a lot hotter than the Australia I experience now. Now, others say, oh, well, how can you prove that? Look at the stats and so on. You look back at any number of headlines from that era, frying eggs on the pavement, it all had to be over 100, which was the equivalent of 40-odd degrees. Regardless, you know, you can look at the data till the cows come home, but ask yourself this, does it really feel like it's so much hotter now than it was when you were a kid? And I can promise you, the older you are, the more you are inclined to say, no, it does not. I remember much hotter times in the past. Now, in Europe at the moment, Andrew, farmers from something like 15 different nations are on strike because of global warming net zero policies. The cat is out of the bag. It is utterly irresponsible. Chris Bowen will go down as the most reckless and dangerous political spender in Australian history. The money we are wasting on renewables when clearly the evidence is not there to support the kind of extremism of people like Guterres saying it's global boiling, etc., etc. Global warming policies are destroying our ability to have reliable, affordable, on-tap energy. And that is, we're seeing, we're seeing steelworks close down, we're seeing blackouts. We're going to see more blackouts. We now have, I gather, the Victorian government was reaching into people's air conditionings and turning it down. Just wait till they can do that to your bank account, by the way, folks. So the reality is these global warming policies are a disaster for electricity prices. And the sooner we get rid of this government, Andrew, I keep saying we can get back to normal common sense on this matter.
Well, look, there's so much in that. I mean, I noticed that Sorbent, for instance, they're closing up their plant. I think it's in Victoria because of citing energy prices and energy insecurity, and going to Indonesia, which doesn't give two hoots about global warming, and they can just admit to what they like. I mean, this is what we're doing to ourselves. Same thing, by the way, is happening in Germany, of course, you know, where China's now eating their lunch because the price of energy over there. And you mentioned the weather. Look, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that we didn't have, for a whole month, a single day over 35 degrees in Melbourne, which was, I think, the first time it had happened in 40 years. So, you know, I know other parts of the country, honestly, Rowan, and isn't life much easier anyway? You know, where is this climate emergency? I can't see it.
Well, people should rely on the evidence of their own eyes, because as I forget who it was that said, you know, statistics, you can prove anything that you like with statistics. So you'll always be able to trot out of this or that or this graph or that graph or whatever. But people have to rely on the evidence of their own eyes wherever they live. And if they believe the weather is worse, hotter, drier, etc., great. But equally, we must listen to people who say, no, it's not, and particularly older people who have the recollections of the actual times. Now, you know, temperature data changes. We know that for all sorts of reasons. Measuring equipment changes. The reality is, in Europe, where they have pursued for a decade net zero policies, there are now protests, riots, almost revolutions happening across parts of Europe where farmers and others have said enough of this nonsense, it has to stop, it is destroying us. That has to be the priority, Andrew, not models of what may or may happen in 20, 30, 50 years' time, 100.
Yeah, but global warming is going to always be there, Rowan, because it's a wonderful excuse for politicians to mask their failures. You know, the energy minister, oh, extreme weather. Extreme weather, that's suddenly why the state, you know, we've been warned for years that the state is going to run out of electricity. Here it is, because, and wasn't that hard a wind, I don't think. It blew over some transmission lines. We should be able to cope with that. But it's a great excuse, mate. Great excuse.
It's the perfect excuse because it can never be disproved. There you go. You can't disprove a negative.
And not only that, that's right. And people, there are certain constituents who really, really want it to be true. So that's even better as an excuse. Rowan Dean, thank you so much for your time.